Hello, welcome to another episode of the Benchwarmers. I'm Matt, here with my co-host Ryan.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 30th episode. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Benchwarmers06. Also subscribe to our podcast on Google Play Music, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube.
On today's episode, Ryan and I will be discussing fantasy football, sleepers, busts, and our top picks that we think are not going to do as well as projected.
Also, in the next coming two episodes, the 31st and 32nd episode that we will be previewing, the college football preview as well as NFL preview.
The Benchwarmers.
Alright, so Ryan, this is kind of my favorite part before football season starts is the fantasy football drafts. You know, it kind of makes me excited to watch, basically sit all day on Sundays watching football, because I have multiple teams that I have in different leagues. Basically, at the end of the day, I'm going to have like the whole NFL that I cheer for because I'm going to pick everybody. But at the end of the day, I guess this makes it fun. You know, it makes me root for, obviously I'm an Eagles fan, you're a Cowboys fan, but fantasy football makes me root for specific players instead of just the general hometown team that I like. So this makes it more enjoyable for me, and I can't wait I already had one draft yesterday, but Ryan and I have our own league draft this coming Sunday, so we may be revealing some of our secrets in this podcast, but, this is what's all about. So before we get started on Ryan and my sleepers, busts, and top picks to fail, Ryan, is there anything you want to include about fantasy football and how much you enjoy it?
Oh yeah, this is definitely my favorite time of year next to March Madness. Especially like Matt said, we look forward to watching all the players that we pick play, so we're not just rooting for one team. It makes it more exciting. And, depending on the year, and like Matt, I'm in a few leagues, but depending on the year, sometimes my teams could be done after week 2 and I give up watching altogether, or I'm watching to the very end because come playoff time, which is where I was last year, I was watching all the way through and rooting for my guys and even rooting against my own team at points because I needed guys to perform to where I needed to get some wins in there. So it's fun, it's entertaining, and, it makes you want to enjoy the game more.
Yeah, but like Ryan just mentioned, it's the worst when you have a first round pick that gets hurt in week 1, i.e. David Johnson last year or Jamal Charles a few years ago. It's the worst feeling when you know your season's over after 2 hours. Always wonderful.
Yeah, we've had a few years here and there throughout our multiple. This is like our 15th year of doing this, Matt, of fantasy football together. So we've had a few years together of where that's happening.
Yeah, I think we started playing fantasy football like freshman year of high school. So yeah, it's been a while. It's definitely been a while. So I'm looking forward to another season. So Ryan and I will, like I mentioned before, sleepers, which are obviously people who score more points than they're valued in the draft or the average draft position. Busts are players that we think that will just fail miserably. They won't do anything close to what they're expected to do. And top picks to fail are people who are usually drafted pretty high in the draft, but they do not give you the value that you pick them at. So me and Ryan will be discussing 4 positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. In our opinion, or at least my opinion, Ryan, you could chime in if you feel differently, kickers and defensive teams, I usually leave them for the last couple picks in the draft, so I didn't see a point to discussing them in this podcast.
Oh yeah, no, they're literally my last 2 round picks. I don't really give much point to those. There's not much to them, so yeah, no, I saw no point either in talking about those positions at all.
So let's get started. Starting off with the quarterback position. My sleeper, the Indianapolis Colts quarterback, Andrew Luck. He's coming off an injury. He basically hasn't played for a couple years now. But when it comes to talent, I don't think there's many people as talented as Andrew Luck. I think because of the fact that he's coming off an injury, people don't expect him to do much. And I think that's why he's a sleeper in my opinion. I think you could get him relatively late in the draft, but I think he's going to give you great value. I think he's going to put up points. Of course, he's going to be a little rusty because he hasn't played a meaningful game in a while. But I think once he gets going, I think he'll be just fine, and he's gonna. I think at the end of the day, I think he's gonna be a top 10 quarterback, where he's getting picked later than that right now in fantasy drafts. So I think he's definitely gonna give you that value. My bust is the 2-time Super Bowl champion, the Steelers quarterback Ben Roethlisberger. I just think he's getting old, really old, and he tells you every year that he's contemplating retirement. I think this is the year that he finally falls off. It's sad for me to say that because I know his team's really good, at least offensively. You have Antonio Brown, you got Le'Veon Bell. But I think this is the year that he finally... I just don't think he has it. I think either he's going to get hurt, or I think his body's going to finally just give way, and I just don't think he'll be able to produce what you expect him to do. And my top quarterback who gets picked high, who I think will not give you the value that you expect from him, is the Seattle Seahawks quarterback, Russell Wilson. I just think that the Seahawks offensively just don't have enough pieces around him and the offensive line where I think Russell Wilson will give you what you expect him to do. He's, of course, a great athlete, and he himself is a great quarterback, but I just don't think his team has enough weapons for him to give you what you want from him as such a high pick.
There's some fair picks there, and I'm not disagreeing with them. I had a little different opinion on these, with my sleeper being Dak Prescott. Now I'm saying, yes, I'm a Cowboys fan, but that's not why I'm picking him. Towards the end of last year, and really most of last year, he showed that he can throw the ball. He learned to throw the ball a lot better in his second season, where he didn't have to rely on his running back as much because he wasn't around for most of the season last year. So, I think he proved that he's coming into his own as a quarterback, and I think that he's actually going to get you a lot more points than what he has his past 2 seasons in the NFL. So I think you're going to see a lot more production out of him, and I think he's going to come out and do what he needs to do for this team and prove that, he is a big portion of this team as to why they can succeed is with him. For my bust, I'm going with, and it's only because I've been doing some research on different things. As always, do research for all these positions when it comes time for fantasy. And a lot of people are putting Mariota really high up there. And I don't see him producing that much. I think he's going to be one of the biggest busts as a quarterback. I don't think he's going to put up any numbers for you. I don't think he really has anyone around him. Not that I disagree with Matt's pick of Ben Roethlisberger, because I agree. I think he's another one who's a bust. And I was contemplating which way I wanted to go here, but I ended up going with Mariota because I just think he's overvalued for what he can do with what he has around him. And I could be wrong. I said this is based on opinions here, but I just think he doesn't have. I think he's way overrated for his position. I mean, for what he actually has around him is what I'm saying there. And then for my top pick to fail, and listen, I'm a fan of this guy, but I think there's just so much on Garoppolo and the 49ers that they're expecting him to do so much because of what he did towards the end of last season that I just don't think, I think people are going to look to beat him and stop him. Yeah, he's been undefeated so far, but there's a time to stop him, and I think, teams are watching how he's thrown the ball in the last like 6 games of the season, whatever it was. And I think, they're looking at that, watching that, and going, okay, we found a way to stop him. And I think that I still think he's going to produce. I still think he's going to produce at a level that he has been with what we've seen so far.
I actually agree with you in Mariota and Garoppolo. I think that they definitely will not give you that return on investment that you picked them at. But I disagree with Dak Prescott. Of course, you may say that's because I hate the Cowboys, but I just don't think with the departures of Des Bryant and Jason Witten, I just don't think he has enough weapons, just like how I mentioned for Russell Wilson. I just don't think he has enough around him besides Zeke to help him out. I don't even know who the number 1 receiver is. Allen Hurns, Cole Beasley. I don't think that's going to save him. I think that's my issue with Dak Prescott. I think he'll be okay. I don't think he's going to be a great sleeper pick. Is my opinion.
No, I'm not disagreeing with the points that you're making. I just think that these guys are going to actually show up, and I mean, losing Witten does hurt. I'm not saying that doesn't hurt him because that was one of his big go-tos. I think he'll find a solid area in there because Beasley was still another guy he threw to, and I think that Hurns will be able to show up more because they don't have Bryant bringing down the team as much. I think that'll show. And Elliott, maybe I don't see a lot out. Actually have Elliott as one of my picks in our next round here, but I don't think that Dak Prescott's going to have to throw the ball more, and he's gonna look for more options than what he was doing in previous seasons. That's where I'm saying I don't disagree. He doesn't have the weaponry. I think he's gonna utilize more of the guys in different ways. I think this year.
Moving on to the running back position, my sleeper pick is the Minnesota Vikings running back Dalvin Cook. He had a very short rookie year. He got hurt, but in the games that he played, he definitely produced. And I think coming off an injury, I think he's not being picked as high as he would have been if he was healthy. And I think that's the reason why I consider him a sleeper here. I think he's a really good running back. He's very talented. He's young, and I think the Vikings' offense is going to blow up. I think they're way more talented than people expect. They have two great receivers in Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. They got Kyle Rudolph as a tight end, and now Dalvin Cook. Their quarterback is Kirk Cousins, which I don't think he's that great personally, but I think he's decent enough where I think the team will do just fine because they have a great defense. I think Dalvin Cook is going to be that key because he's going to be able to run the ball to set that pace for the Vikings, and that's why I believe he's that sleeper. Bust. The former Eagle, but now Buffalo Bill, Shady McCoy. It's just one of those things, once you get old as a running back, I think at some point you're gonna stop producing before it's too late. And he's that guy. I mean, he's been in the league for a while now, and he's had some wonderful years. I mean, even last year he had a pretty good year. I just personally think the Buffalo Bills as a team isn't that good, and I just think that he's going to kind of take that heat for it this time around, just because of the fact that he doesn't have enough around him. And I think they're going to key in on him because of the fact that they know he's a good player, and I think defenses are going to shut him down. And I just do not think he's worth that pick where he's getting picked currently. I think if you want him as a bench player, I don't have a problem with that. But if you want to start him, that's where I see the issue. I just don't see him producing like you usually expect from him. And my top pick to fail, this kind of hurts me to say also because he was definitely one of my favorite college players to watch last year. And I know Ryan, as a Penn State alum, probably hates me for saying this, but Saquon Barkley of the Giants, yeah, I know.
Hurts a little bit here, man. Not gonna lie.
The only reason why I'm putting him on this list is because he's going right now as like the 5th overall pick in drafts. I just think that's way, way too high right now for a rookie running back. And I know a lot previously, a bunch of rookie running backs have been doing well. You have the Todd Gurleys, even Dalvin Cook. But I just feel like Saquon Barkley, he's a great athlete, he's a great player. I think he'll have a great career. I just think picking him where he's currently going in that mid first round, I think is way too high. And that's the only reason why I'm putting him as a top pick to fail. I'm not saying he's going to be horrible or anything. I just don't think he's going to be top five value. That's all. He's going to have a lot of opportunities on the Giants, so don't get me wrong there. I think he'll definitely produce. He just doesn't. I don't think he's going to put top 5 production. That's all.
No, and that's fair. I will tell you I disagree with that, but that's just my opinion on this. So for my sleeper, I'm going with Matt Breida of the 49ers. And I'm saying he's a sleeper, and my choice for picking him as a sleeper is that right now he's a backup for McKinnon, and I think that, this kid has a lot that he can do for the 49ers. I think he's going to end up outshining McKinnon and putting him in the background, and he'll end up being the main guy to go to in week 4 or 5 of the season. I don't think the first week or two, but give it a couple of weeks, and I think you're going to see Matt take over as the starting running back in that position, only because I think he has more to offer, and I think he'll prove that in his first time as soon as he gets all the touches. So that's why I'm picking him as my sleeper there. For my bust, I think Melvin Gordon is an overrated running back, and I don't think he's going to produce the way the Chargers need him to this year. I don't think the Chargers are going to do much this year either. But I don't think Melvin Gordon is, in my mind, a top 10 running back. Nor do I think that I would want him as one of my starters this year. Just for me personally, as a bench, sure. As a backup, I don't think he'll be too bad. I just don't think he's going to produce the way I think that they're projecting him in. I think he's like a top 7 or something like that right now. I just don't think he's up there. And then for my top pick to fail, I'm going with, Dallas Cowboy player in Ezekiel Elliott. I don't think he's a top 4 running back this year. I don't think he will be. I think he is overrated. I think he's finally going to come down to earth a little bit on that, and you're not going to see him in there. And I actually think, just to combat what Matt said here, I think Saquon Barkley will end up doing better than Ezekiel Elliott number-wise in fantasy.
Wow.
I would, if I had a choice. I'm telling you right now, if I had the choice, I'm picking Saquon over Elliott.
Wow.
Just me. I think Saquon is going to produce more. I don't think I'm not disagreeing that these guys aren't going to produce maybe in the top 5 like everyone's saying. I don't think either of these guys are going to be a top 5. They're still going to do a lot. They're still going to put up numbers. I think Saquon is going to do better than Elliott this year. That is what I'm saying.
That's big talk, my friend. But
listen, if he's around in our draft, you will see me pick him.
Once again, we're not saying don't pick Saquon or Zeke. They're definitely pick worthy. Definitely.
That's not what we're saying here with this top pick to fail. That's not what we're saying there.
I disagree in your Gordon and Zeke picks. I think both of them are going to have very good seasons. I could see what you're saying about Zeke maybe not being a top four running back. I could see that being the case, just because of the fact that I don't think the Cowboys' offense is that great. Like I mentioned about Dak earlier, I just don't think that team is that good. So I just don't. That's the only reason why I don't think Zeke will be top 4. But I think he still will have a pretty good year. And Melvin Gordon, I'm a big fan of Melvin Gordon. I actually picked him in my draft yesterday, so I expect him to be.
Well, I feel sorry for you.
I'm a big fan of Melvin Gordon. I think he's a really good running back, and I think the Chargers' offense is really good. So I think that Melvin Gordon will not be a bust in my. Obviously, I hope that because I picked him.
I was like, you're hoping he's not going to be.
Yeah, I definitely understand where Ryan's coming from, but in my opinion, I think both Melvin and Zeke are people that will produce, and I don't really see a huge issue with them if you pick them, especially Zeke. I think he might not be top 4, but I could definitely see him being a top 10 running back, and same with Melvin Gordon. I think both of them are very good players, but yeah, like Ryan mentioned, they might not give you exactly your return on investment. Moving on to the wide receiver position. My sleeper, he hasn't played for like 4 years, bro. Like straight up. Like he's been suspended because he smoked so much weed, here and there. You don't know what he's up to. And all I know is this guy is uber talented. If he's on the field, I think he will produce. That's all I'm saying. That's my only caveat. If he's on the field, he will produce. And that's the Cleveland Browns receiver, Josh Gordon. I just think that all he needs is to be on the field. That's his only issue. The problem is, it's tough for him to do. Either he gets hurt or he gets suspended because he loves to smoke weed. That's all I can say. I just think he's that good of a player because the last time he played, he went crazy. He led the league in receiving. Granted, it was 4 years ago, and that was a trash quarterback. Now, not much has changed. It's still Cleveland, but I just think he's going to produce if he's playing. My bust is Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver Mike Evans. I just think that Jameis Winston, he's another guy who I just don't believe in. I believe Jameis Winston led the league in interceptions last year, so I just think that because of that, I think Mike Evans' production is going to falter some more. That's the only reason I'm putting him in the bust section. He like other players that I've spoke about in this podcast, I think are talented, and I think they should have put up points, hence why they're being picked where they are. I just don't think, because of the fact that the Buccaneers and Jameis Winston is his team, I just do not think he will put up points where you pick him at. And my top pick to fail He's another guy whom I'm a big fan of. I think he's really consistent for the most part. His whole career, he has a great work ethic. Is AJ Green of the Cincinnati Bengals. But my only problem is, like I mentioned for my other top pick to fail, I think his team's he's just mediocre at best, and his quarterback is Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, he's just mediocre. I don't expect a lot from him, and that's why I think AJ Green is just not a top value pick as a wide receiver. If he was on any other team, if he had a good quarterback or a great team, I would have no issue picking AJ Green. Just my problem is with that Cincinnati Bengals team. I have no confidence in them, and I think that's going to hurt AJ Green this year.
Some pretty good points you had there. I don't disagree with any of that. So, in my sleeper, I'm going with DJ Moore, and he is the second option for the Carolina Panthers. I think that Camel gets some more opportunity to throw to him this year. I think that Funches won't be as productive. I'm also banking on the fact that you're going to see Cam try and throw the ball a little bit more again, get that team back into playoff contention and all that. So I think you're going to see a lot more out of his receiving core. I think DJ Moore is where it's at. He'll end up becoming his number one option later in the season. I think he'll definitely be able to produce for you points wise. Bust, I'm going with Odell Beckham Jr. after coming off his injury. I don't see him putting up as much numbers. The team wasn't that good. I don't think their quarterback is that good. I just don't think that, Beckham's I think they're banking him as a top 10 receiver, and I just don't see it. I really don't.
I think they have his top 5.
It's top 5? I think it's even worse. I don't think he's going to be a top 5. You may see him in maybe a top 15, I'm saying. I don't see him being a starter as a wide receiver this year. After coming off the injury that he had, and I think Eli Manning's on his downward spiral and their backups ain't that much better. I just don't see him being able to get the ball enough to produce on a team that I don't think is that good. So I don't think that he's gonna get the points to get you as a top 5 quarterback.
Wide receiver.
Maybe a couple weeks here and there. Sorry, thank you. Wide receiver. I meant his quarterback isn't that good to get him the ball so that he's putting up the numbers for you. I just think that you're gonna see a drop in him because of how bad the team is and all of that. And I'm not saying he's not a good wide receiver. I don't know. I don't think he's going to produce the way he has been after coming off of this injury. And for top pick to fail, I'm going with Jarvis Landry. I think that both whoever his quarterback is, whether it's Tyrod Taylor or Baker Mayfield, and I think Baker Mayfield is extremely going to be overrated as a quarterback, and I think he'll fare miserably as a quarterback. But even if he has Tyrod Taylor, I just don't think that the Browns will get maybe one win, but it's not going to be because of Jarvis Landry. They have another option there as well, but I don't think the quarterback's that good for him to be as big of a player as they're hoping the Cleveland Browns actually are going to be as a team this year. I don't see it happen. I don't see these guys a playoff contention team. they're not going to go 0-16 and then come around and show me a playoff team. I don't see it. I don't think Jarvis Landry will put up the points, and I think he'll still get some points there. I'm not saying he won't, because I'm not saying that Tyrod Taylor's a horrific quarterback. I just don't think that he's going to be putting up the points, that they're expecting him with who he has and with this team.
It's funny that you picked both Beckham and Landry. They were both college teammates at LSU, so you expect both of them to suck.
Yes, LSU sucks. Thank you.
Hear more about that next week in College Football Preview. It's funny that you said Jarvis Landry, because I just read an article today where Jarvis Landry said he's the best receiver in the league. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Well, like I said, I think he may still put up some numbers. I just don't think it's where they're expecting him to put up numbers.
Well,
and I don't think he's the best wide receiver in the league. I'm sorry, Jarvis Landry. You are way full of yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of trying to get at. He is nowhere close to being the best wide receiver in the league. He's a pretty good wide receiver in the league. I gave him that. He's been pretty consistent throughout his NFL career. He's always, over or close to 100 receptions a year, which that's all fine and dandy. But I would not call him the best receiver in the league. Like I just mentioned, his previous college teammate Odell Beckham is better than him. Julio Jones is better than him. Who am I missing here? Antonio Brown is better than him.
The entire NFL receiving corps.
Let's not go too far.
No, but I disagree. I mean, there's a lot of wide receivers that are better than him, and he's just he's a very cocky player, and that's his own issues there.
Yeah, I mean, and
the team's not that good either. You can say you're a great wide receiver, but if you don't have a good team, I don't really care. You're not doing much.
But to be fair, his Miami Dolphins teams weren't that great either. And yet he still produced.
Neither was he.
I mean, he always produced. His numbers weren't horrible. His numbers were pretty good. You know who he is my point. So
yes, we all know who he is, but he's not the best, like we said.
All right, so moving on to our last position, tight end. My sleeper, Mr. Jack Doyle, the Indianapolis Colts. My sleeper was Andrew Luck in quarterback, and my sleeper in tight end is Jack Doyle. They go hand in hand here. Andrew Luck's favorite target, Jack Doyle. So with the comeback of Luck, I think this makes Doyle even more of a factor here. I think he's going to put up big numbers as a tight end. I think he's going to end up as a top 5 tight end this year in fantasy. I think he's going to have such a breakout year because of the fact that Luck is going to be, coming off an injury. He's going to want his safety valve, and I think Doyle is that guy. So I expect big things from Jack Doyle this year. My bust, Evan Ingram of the Giants. Like Ryan mentioned in his last position, wide receiver, Beckham, and now Ingram. I just don't... And my other fail was Saquon. Clearly, combined, me and Ryan do not believe in the Giants. So this kind of adds on to that. I just don't think Evan Ingram is going to produce as much as expected. Like Ryan mentioned, Eli Manning, I have absolutely no confidence in anymore. He's whatever. In my opinion, he's below average. That's really all I expect. Because of that's Ryan putting Evan Ingram low. It's not because of him, he himself. It's because it's more of his team. Like I mentioned for a couple other guys that I talked about. If he had a better quarterback or a better team, I would have no issue with them. Just with him on the Giants, I just do not think he's going to give you that great value. And my top pick to fail, the monster himself, Mr. Gronkowski. I just think that he's had a lot of injury issues over the years. He's a big guy. You just never know with him. He's always been missing a few games here and there. He's not somebody you could depend on. Is my point. And usually Gronk goes really high in drafts. He's usually one of like a third round or earlier pick. And if he's going to be your top tight end, you want a guy that you'll have every week and just want to put up points for you. And usually if Gronk is healthy, he will put up points. My only issue is you just don't know if he's going to play every week. He just has way too many nagging injuries, and that's my issue. And that's why I think he's not worth the value here, and that's why I think he's going to fail.
So I am going with, and I like Jack Doyle as your sleeper pick. I actually was contemplating him, but I went with Trey Burton. And you would know him as, yes, I did go with a guy who was an ex-Eagle. And he didn't do too bad with the Eagles last year as a backup. He had to play some games, and he produced really well, which is why the Chicago Bears picked him up this year. And I think he's going to perform enough to be a top 5 tight end. I think he's got some pieces around him. I think he's going to be able to get the ball more. He's definitely a solid player, and I think he's going to produce to where people don't expect him to as much. For my bust, actually, which is funny that Matt used him as your top pick to fail, was Gronkowski. I think because of the same reasons you say he's going to fail, I think he's going to be a bust and he is, I think, 1 or 2 at the tight end position this year. I think he's going to be a bust, and I don't think he's going to produce that much at all, or produce at all. I don't think he's going to play that much. I think his injuries over the last few years are going to get to him. I don't think he's going to be as dominant of a force. I think he's falling off more. like Jimmy Graham was a top tight end for many, many years. In the last 3 years, he's kind of faded down the list, and I think Gronk's going to be one of those guys where he's going to fade really far down the list this year. I mean, he was contemplating retiring this year and decided to come back. So I just don't think he's going to be that productive of a player at that position, whether, you've got one of the greatest quarterbacks thrown to you or not. I don't see Gronk putting up those numbers this year. And I think that he'll be a bust this year. For my top pick to fail, I'm going with the guy who is right next to Gronk, actually at 1 and 2, and that's Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think they have I'm not saying he's going to be a bust. I just don't think they have a good enough. I don't think he has a QB that's going to throw to him. I don't think he's going to have the receptions that he's going to need.
You have no belief in Patrick Mahomes?
No, I do not. I have no belief in him. I have no belief in any of their backups. Let me say that. It's not I don't have any belief in him. I just don't think that, he's going to utilize Kelce the way he needs to be utilized. I think he's going to overlook him more. He's not going to throw to him as much, and that's what I'm saying is when he gets the ball, he's going to be productive because he's Travis Kelce and he's still a monster, and I believe in him as a player. I just don't think his QB is going to utilize him the way that he should be utilized, and that's why I think he won't be terrible. I just don't think he'll be, that top 1-2 where they're projecting him to be, like he has been. I just don't see it because of his quarterback. That's all I'm saying there.
I actually agree here because of the fact that they got rid of Alex Smith, he tries to play very conservative and safe, which is why Travis Kelce got a lot of catches because, Alex Smith always throws those short passes. He doesn't like to throw interceptions, whereas Patrick Mahomes is more of a gunslinger. He likes to chuck it downfield to his wide receivers. I think that Ryan's, theory of Kelce may not be utilized as greatly. I could see that being the case here just because of the way Patrick Mahomes' style of play is. And I really love his picks of Trey Burton. I mean, he was a backup for the Eagles. He was part of that Philly special. So I have a soft spot for Trey Burton. But I really think he's going to excel this year with the Bears. I think Mitchell Trubisky of the Bears, I think he should use Trey Burton as a safety valve. And I expect Trey Burton to have a pretty good year. And I could see why Ryan chose him as a sleeper. I'm all for that.
Hey, look, we actually agreed on something. That wasn't too bad. Very rarely does this happen, people.
I still hope your team sucks in fantasy.
As I do yours, and I hope you don't make the playoffs.
Wow, that's hatred.
Hey, listen, I made the playoffs last year. That's all I'm pointing out.
And I didn't. Shut up.
Yeah, exactly. My point. So your team can continue not make the playoffs back-to-back years. So just a quick interruption of the podcast again with the sponsors of the Kidney Boys. Their single Rejection was released on Spotify, iTunes, and Apple Music. So we will have a link on our YouTube page for you to be able to download or stream the song Rejection if you would like. And we appreciate them letting us use the beat in the background. So for my hot topic, we talked about this guy last week, and we're bringing him up as a hot topic because I'm bringing up as a hot topic because of I'm talking about Urban Myers of Ohio State, and he's the hot topic for me because he was only suspended for 3 games. Yes, folks, you heard me right, 3 games. I have no respect for Ohio State. I have no respect for them not getting rid of him. And I definitely have no respect for Urban Myers as a leader. I don't think he actually is one. And I think this is a big mistake on Ohio State. I don't understand why Urban Myers still has a job. It's really disappointing to see when this guy who's supposed to lead this team and lead his coaches does something so negligent as not to, reprimand a guy who he knew was doing something, terrible. And then they go, oh, you know what? Basically, we don't care that you knew or didn't know, which, again, if he had known, even as a leader, you should have known something and should have been in the forefront and basically didn't care, and they're just looking for wins. And I think it's just disrespectful to the situation and to really everything in general when it comes to anything like this of with the accusations that were being thrown at his own coach. So I just think that Ohio State here really just dropped the ball on not getting rid of a coach who wasn't leading his team or his coaches in a good direction. I'm just really disappointed here.
Yeah, I'm with Ryan on this and his sentiments on this one. This is outrageous. This is a leader, a so-called leader, who just turned a blind eye to one of his employees doing something that's awful. Something like this, domestic abuse, is awful, and it should not be, supported in any way. I don't care if he's a friend or whatnot. This is something that should be brought to the forefront, and he should have got punished years ago. They should have not gone this far. I think anyone would agree. And the fact that Urban Meyer only got suspended 3 games for this, that's it? I mean, me and Ryan were talking in the last podcast. We thought he was going to get fired, and I felt like that was totally valid. I don't think anyone would have said anything if he got fired. I think we've been totally okay with that. But 3 games, there's players who get or sold their the Michigan players who sold their Jordan shoes got 4 games. People who get tattoos for free at Ohio State before they got 4 games. Like, you get dumb things that the players do, they get punished more severely. I think most people would say that's nothing compared to this. So I am truly baffled by this suspension of only 3 games. I think it's outrageous, and honestly, I think, like Ryan said, it's very disappointing that Ohio State, all they care is about victories. Because if this was a coach who went 500 last year, he would have got fired. But because he's Urban Meyer and he wins games and he wins the Big Ten and he wins championships, it's like, oh, it's okay. You know what? You only get 3 games. Come back and, we'll be back to normal again. And I think that's not the way that you run a program, let alone a college. This is a college. Let's not forget that. This is where young people are, basically being transformed into adults, and this is the guy you have leading them. That's just a bad look in my opinion. And let's not forget, Urban Meyer as a coach, he has to go to these kids' houses and try to recruit them. And who do they recruit to? Their kids' moms. Which mom would want to have their kid go to a college or a coach who has 0 respect for women? Clearly, I think this is not going to be good for Ohio State and Urban Meyer in the future. I don't think moms would. I don't think moms will let these players want to be led by a guy like Urban Meyer. That's what my thought is here. On to my hot topic for this week. A little more lighter note than Ryan's. Going to the Premier League. Manchester United. They won their first game of the week of the season. Just by 1 goal, and then last week they lost to Brighton by a score of 3-2. They lost to Brighton, Ryan. Who the heck is Brighton? You're Manchester United. You're coached by Jose Mourinho. You're one of the top teams in the world with one of the highest payrolls, and you lose to Brighton in the second week of the season. I can understand maybe you lose a game in the middle of the season because you played all your Premier League games and your Champions League games, and you drop a game here. I get it. But your second game of the season, you're gonna lose to Brighton. That's just I don't know what to say here. And I think if this continues, I don't care how good of a coach Jose Mourinho is. He's on the hot seat, and he could get fired before the middle of the season. I definitely said it happened. If they go on this route, he might be out by Christmas time, because this is awful. There's a lot of rumors about Paul Pogba having issues with Jose, and Paul Pogba. Let's not forget, he led that France team to the World Cup. He was one of the key players on that team, and clearly he's not being used as well on the Manchester United team. And I don't know. I just think that if I was one of the board members of Man U, I would give Jose Mourinho a very short leash, and if he doesn't produce in the next few weeks, I think just fire him, move on, because you can't let this go. I mean, you can't let this go on long, because let's not forget, this is Manchester United. This is not some mediocre team in Premier League. This is a team that you expect to be contending for a title every year.
So, I like to point out, if everyone listening out there doesn't remember, from episode 28, I did not pick Man U as one of my top 4 teams in the Premier League. So this is not shocking to me. Fully, let me phrase that. Losing to Brighton is semi-shocking, but the fact that this team is really not producing the way they should, I'm not really shocked at. Because like I said, I didn't think they were going to, do that well this year. And they're really proving this year. Whether it's Jose or not, I don't disagree with Matt here. He's probably going to be gone by Christmas time, if not sooner, depending how bad this team is. I mean, you barely win your first game, and then you lose your second game to a really not as well-known team in the Premier League. I'm sorry, but, and if you're having issues with one of your top players who was a part of that World Cup team, yeah, they're gonna, if you're a smart board with Man U, that they're gonna end up dropping him as a coach sooner rather than later, especially like Matt said, with the history this team has, as being a great franchise and all of that. So I don't definitely disagree there. But like I said, I didn't see much in Man U this year coming into this season, and they're really proving that these first two games, unless they can turn it around, they're not gonna be a top 4 team, and they're definitely not gonna have a coach their coach for much longer.
Well, that's all we have for this week's episode of the Benchwarmers. Once again, please subscribe to our podcast on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter at Benchwarmers06. And please stay tuned for our next couple episodes, which will be college football preview and NFL preview. See you guys next week.
The Benchwarmers.